Problem 2 says translate the plane along the figure B, containing figure B along the vector BA. Use your transparency to sketch the image of figure B by this translation. Mark points on figure B and label the image of figure B accordingly. The first step when we're translating is to extend that vector. So we're going to take a straight edge, either a ruler or the edge of a protractor, and extend that thing out past the end. So whichever way it's pointing, we want to make sure we continue that direction. Then we're going to take our tracing paper and set it on top of our figure and make sure our vector is included in the same page. You want to make sure you don't just get the figure or just get the vector. You have to get both on the same piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to trace the vector, only the vector, not the part that's extended, and the figure, getting some critical points on our figure. And then we are going to extend it past the vector. So what we want to do is make sure that the end of our vector matches up with the end, or the point of the vector matches up with the end of the vector on our tracing paper. So it's going to look something like that, where they just barely touch each other. But if your vector is tilted, then it's not going to translate. It's going to translate and rotate. So what we want to make sure that happens is they touch, but they also need to be lined up on that line that we extended. Then we are going to push on those dots so that we can see where it dents the paper underneath. And if you still aren't able to see it, what you can do is you can poke holes, once it's lined up, poke holes through your tracing paper just so slightly, and then put that mark there. So the way I'm doing this is by lifting it up. Sorry, my hand's kind of in the way. Then you have some dots that you can use to follow along with. And this is called figure B prime. Number 3 says draw an acute angle, meaning a small angle smaller than 90 degrees of your choice, a segment of 3 centimeters, and a point, a circle with a radius of 1 inch, and a vector. You get to choose your length and your direction. Label the points and measurements. Use your transparency to translate all of the figures you have drawn along your vector. Sketch the images of the translated figures and label them. You are not going to be able to fit all of these things on your paper in this section, so you're going to need to attach a separate sheet. Here I have an extra piece of paper. I'm going to start with my segment that is 3 centimeters long. You've got to use a straight edge and a measuring device. Then I need a point, and I need a circle with a radius of 1 inch. So I'm going to use my measuring device to create a line segment that is 1 inch. And then I'm going to open my compass up to that size. so that it matches, and then I'm going to put my point here and I'm going to draw the circle. Oops. My pencil doesn't want to stay. Okay, so I have my 3 things, and then I also need to include a vector. I'm going to make my vector point downward. So here's my end and my point. With my tracing paper, again, I need to make sure that all of my figures can fit on one piece of tracing paper. I also need to extend the line through that vector. So that way I can make sure that I stay on the right path. And now I'm going to trace all of my things. So I have my point, my 3 centimeter line segment. I don't need to trace my circle, I just need to make sure that I have the center and then 1 point on the circle. So that way I know how to create my circle, and I can use my compass again at the end to replace that on my page. Now we're going to slide until the end matches up with the point, and I'm going to make sure that it's on the line that's underneath by keeping it straight, and then I'm going to replace my figures. If you're doing this on a stack of paper like your workbook, it's a lot easier to push and get those indents, but if you're doing it on just one piece of paper separate, you may have to poke holes. Okay, so here is the ends of that line segment. Here is the center of my circle, and then there's the end of my radius. Let's see if I can do this one a little better than last time. Okay. And then there is my point. So if this was A, B, this would be A prime, B prime. If this is point C, this one would be C prime. If this is point D, this point would be D prime. And if my vector is E, F, we don't have to redraw the, oh, that's not an F. We don't have to redraw the vector, we just need to make sure that it was on our tracing paper, like you see here. So question 4 says, what is the length of the translated segment and how does it compare to the length of the original segment? So the original was 3 centimeters, and after I have finished, here are my points. It's again at 3 centimeters. How does it compare? This is the same as before, or it's pre-image. I also noticed that I forgot a part. It says draw an acute angle, so we need to make sure that we add that to our original and to our translation. So let's try that. I'm going to make mine be a 30-degree angle. And then when I copy that, make sure I'm back lined up with the original, and I translate, Number 5 says, what is the length of the radius of the translated circle? So how long is it from the center to the outside? It is still 1 inch. And how does that compare? It is the same as the pre-image. Or the original. 6, what is the degree of the translated angle? Remember, you line up the corner in the center of your protractor and make sure that the line is lined up on the line here. If we were to continue this out, we could see that it would still be a 30-degree angle. So for number 6, 30 degrees, which is the same as the pre-image. It also asks us to explain. Translations preserve angle measures and distances. So we're going to write that for all of these. Translations preserve angle measure and distance. Now number 7. Translate point D along vector AB and label the image D prime. Start by extending the line through the vector. And copying the point D and the vector. Then slide till the end matches up with the point, and make sure that your line is matched up with the vector. Then place your point back on the original paper. It says, what do you notice about the line containing the vector and the line containing the points D and D prime? If we were to draw a line through these 2 points, what do you notice? Are they ever going to intersect? If they never intersect, what do we call that? We call it parallel. So a point and its image, when translated along a vector, will be parallel to the vector.